different ways in which someone can help around the world, or different ways in which a group of people can benefit from someone else's idea. We have all at one time of our life in history class read the saying, history repeats itself. And it does repeat itself until a certain point without knowing it. In order to have a conscious mind of the different events that might occur, history should be a study. Not only history of a certain region, but widely, so people can have a better understanding of what might occur if we're not educated enough. People live only in the present. They only plan and worry about the future, but never look back on what has been done and how not to do the same. We have to look for answers in history. In a way, we can change the typical history repeats itself, studying the success and failures of the past and avoiding repeating them in the future. Now, you may all be asking, what could someone studying history with the prize? What changed the world with history? History would always be with us, no matter what, in a way or another. We always end up looking back into the different events that have marked us in a way or another. I believe that with the money given to me by this foundation, it would give me the chance to implement better systems in education in order for kids to know more about history. More libraries around the state would be fulfilled with more interactive activities about history and how it can help them out. History can help at the same time develop the basic knowledge of inventions and discoveries made from the past. It becomes easier to keep on developing things than just to start from zero. I want to show how the importance of history in our life through the help of a research I did on Cuba and Fidel Castro. This is a great example on why history should not repeat itself, and how anyone should have more knowledge on the different events that have occurred. Fidel Castro was the president of Cuba for around 5 decades, and he took power by one of the worst ways. Fidel Castro was seen as the savior of Cuba, and everyone believed he was going to change the country, which he did, but for worse. Cuba has been a country which has been full of corruption after corruption, cup after cup, creating more and more poverty in the country. If people from Cuba knew or analyzed the situation a couple of months before Castro rose to power, they would have known how to react to the situation they were going through, since it was just like the previous decade. When ex-President Fulgencio Batista was in charge, Cuba's economy went through a severe time. Cuba had a massive unemployment rate that caused low income, no money flew inside the country, which ended up asking for more money loans, demanding high cost and interest, and lowering its industrial production. All of these problems turned into a social and economic crisis. Under dictator Fulgencio Batista, as said by McDonald, 1985, only 50% of the school-age population did not attend to school, and expenditures were concentrating in urban areas to the exclusion of rural provinces. If only half percent of the school-age population assisted to school, this meant lower income in the country years later. Lower personal development. A country grows where their society is educating. An educated person is a more productive person, more competitive, and etc. Unemployment rates were the double. No school mean literacy rate were high. In the 1950s, Cuba had a literacy rate of 23% and a 53% in agricultural areas. Now, you have a dictator whose country is in the ruins, and the only light to these people saw was to believe that in a person who would turn the country for worst. However, Castro was more intelligent than the previous president. He knew that he had to enter into everyone's mind somehow. There had to be a way in which everyone would remind him. For example, on February 24, 1958, in Sierra Maestra, Rebel Radio was founded by the Che Guevara. It was created as a mechanism of integration and communication between the rebels and the Cuban society. Castro used the radio as a form of spreading his ideologies and goals to the nation. This can be seen since the start of his speeches throughout the radio. His first speech started when he was gaining the faith and hope from his followers by making it seem to the government at the time did not have control over the nation. He would say that the leader was a liar, tyrant, and even had a military incapacity. Castro wanted to transmit to the people that without the leaders in power, the country would adapt to a better internal and external policy. How smart was for a president to start broadcasting even before what he was doing while trying to reach power. Castro knew that the only way to reach power was by letting everyone know who he was, and not only nationally but internationally too. Castro took propaganda to be one of the most crucial armament in his foreign policy. I believe that by studying history, this is a very important case for history, since I believe that studying history is very important for everyone. And if we start by making it more interesting, giving it more importance, then many of the problems that we face nowadays can be solved. Again, why is there now a refugee crisis in Syria? Where does that come from? Why North Korea is most outside country in the world? Why Cuba has been internationally blocked with the United States for half a century? Why do Spaniards and French don't get along very well? And not just in sports. Studying history will help us understand some of the whys of the present. Studying history will help us to understand and remember that the current problem with the Syrian refugee, for example, is not new, that Europeans already had to migrate in mass to other places fleeing the crisis of war. Lastly, studying history develops in the Syrian critical spirit. That is, the ability to have an opinion about historical events or processes and to be able to defend your ideas. And with an original idea in our mind, no one can coerce us, manipulate us, or manage us like puppets. And only then will you be free, because the ultimate goal of education is to create free people.